the power of the enlightened feminine aspect. I was mentioning recently that talking to someone, we had this really fascinating conversation about this feminine energy when it comes to enlightenment. And they said that early on, they had encountered some female teachers who could point in a very direct way and said that they had overlooked them. They thought, this doesn't really resonate with me. And only a few years later, in deeper realization, did they realize that the reason that that teacher was uninteresting to them early on wasn't because the teacher didn't have insight, and it wasn't because the teacher didn't have a good pointing or good expression. It was quite the opposite. It was because it was actually so direct, it was intimidating. Now understand, most people won't see that. They won't see that, oh, I'm actually kind of terrified of that directness, that kind of surrender, that kind of Kali energy. And instead, it's just something like, oh, I'm not interested in that teacher, or they don't use precise terms, or, they just seem so casual that it doesn't seem like they're really pointing to anything particularly remarkable. But once you really start touching into your own feminine aspect, the vulnerable that goes so deep that one becomes completely unguarded, one becomes completely unarmored and raw, you start to know the power of the feminine aspect. It's very, very powerful, dangerous. It will dispel all your illusions. It is a sword. You see these images of Kali, and she's holding all these heads, and there's dead bodies at her feet, which are all essentially symbols for ego, symbols for the illusions. But she's a very, very powerful archetype, and you understand, okay, this is what this is really about, that there's something extremely powerful in the feminine transmission, and you may not even know the effect it had on you for a couple of years. When I read this poem this morning, I thought of this immediately. This is a very powerful poem. I don't read a lot of poetry on these videos, so if I do, this one's a hard-hitting poem. Check this out. You are a goddess. Excuse me. Not a good start. You are a goddess, and I am a simple being trembling beneath the weight of your presence. I believe you would heal me, wrap me in silken light, stroke the knots of my sorrow until they unraveled into grace. And you said, sure, let's begin. But what I meant wasn't this. What I thought was gentleness wasn't the fire you lit in me. I thought healing would be soft and sensual, a balm against my bruises, a dream made flesh, a cocoon for my desires. Not this unmasking, this shattering of the mirror that held the fragile portrait of my persona. Not this pain, raw and unrelenting, flaying my illusions one by one until I stood exposed, naked in your gaze. You loved me in the discomfort, held me in the discovery, kissed the breaking open as though it were a blessing. And perhaps it is. Perhaps healing isn't soft, but sharp, jagged, alive. Perhaps the only way to live is to be pierced by it, to be stripped of every lie until the truth shines like a wound, like a gift. And so I stand, shivering in this unmasking, no longer sure where I begin or end. Your hands are not kind, but they are sure, sculptor's hands, breaking me apart to rebuild a thing I cannot yet fathom. Trust, you whisper, though it sounds like thunder, and I do, though the trust tastes like blood, though it feels like falling into endless sky. Your eyes burn with something ancient, and I realize you are not here to save me. You are here to remind me I was never broken, only buried beneath the weight of my own forgetting. The poet is Larson Langston, Langston. Is that not a powerful poem? That's the embodiment of Kali right there. That's someone who has met the goddess, and by goddess I mean Kali. This is raw, unfettered, feminine energy, undistorted, powerful, which of course meets the masculine so perfectly. What more is there to say? I think when I recognize this energy and reflect on how it's affected me and what I've gone through and what I see other people go through, the term that comes to mind is a very simple one. Fuck around, find out.